Welcome to another Suncast Live. It is a good time to be in a job these days. Also a good time to be in the clean energy business, the renewable business, and perhaps not such a good time to be in many other industries, not the least of which is the fossil industry, notably oil and gas. We're going to talk a bit about that today. And stoked to have a couple of my friends joining us today, Catherine McLean from Dillon Green and Renee Bourgeois from Mockingbird Technology. If you don't know me, I'm Nico Johnson. Happy to host you here on Suncast Live as we dig in to what is happening in the world of renewable energy, in the world of clean energy, but energy broadly. And there's a topic circulating mostly in certain pockets of chief people officers and recruitment about how do we increase something called D&I, diversity and inclusion. Now, the folks that we're going to talk to today, and personally on Suncast as well, we've been focused on D&I for more than the last few months when let's say media has been focused on D&I broadly. So we're going to talk a bit about what is diversity and inclusion, what does it mean, and why is now such a good opportunity for those who are actively trying to work diversity and inclusion into your hiring, your growth, your business practice generally. Why is this such a great opportunity to gain that diversity in hires from the fossil industry? That's right, my friends. How do we build a bridge between our friends in oil and gas to our businesses in renewables? To do that, we're going to talk, as I mentioned, with Catherine McLean, the CEO and founder of Dillon Green, who I've been having a lot of fun lately with collaborating and thinking about how do we increase diversity in this industry? How do we hire properly? Who are the companies that are willing to put themselves out there and say, I will put a flag in the sand, I will stake a claim that we will grow diversity as a part of not just our frontline team, but our leadership. I'm going to welcome Catherine to the stage. Catherine, good to see you. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
All right. All right. Fantastic. Can hear you loud and clear. You posted something that I think got a lot of traction. You must be close to probably 15, 20,000 views now on LinkedIn, where you very proudly, rightfully so, staked that your commitment to diversity and inclusion in your hiring practices for your clients is bearing fruit. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's right. A lot of it is just being aware that it's an issue and then having some intentionality around your searches.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we're going to talk about what those searches look like and why diversity inclusion is not only important, but why it's so hard. How has the industry begun to grow? Where are folks able to find their role and their place? If you're joining us on LinkedIn or Twitter, or if you're joining us as a replay on Crowdcast, we're so glad to have you hanging out with us. I would love it if you would drop a comment. What is it that you find particularly challenging about hiring into roles in your business, specifically for what we might put in that bucket of diversity and inclusion? Someone who's candidly not white, middle-aged male. Even beyond just your engineering roles. And by the way, how do we find diversity in traditionally gender stratified roles, right? HR traditionally has been sort of qualified as gender, not necessarily gender neutral. So we're going to explore some of that today. I would also love it if in the comments you would post your questions for Catherine. We're going to have my friend Renee join us in a little bit as well. But if you are looking for a job, in particular, if you're looking for a job and you are one of the 25,000 or so in the oil and gas business from BP, Chevron, Exxon on down, who find themselves post-COVID without a role in the traditional business that you've been dedicated to, would you put a comment down in whatever platform you're on and say, that's me. I want to reach out to you. We are working on ways to help you find a role and a fit in our industry. The clean energy business has been growing like gangbusters for the last 10 years, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. and we like to extend that olive branch, but more than that, strategically, we'd like to help insert you and the technical capability that you bring from a very, very well-founded technological and fundamental understanding of the energy business broadly. Our business needs you. Right, Catherine?
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Tell me about this video that's going viral on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so about 6 months ago, I decided that I wasn't just going to talk about D&I with people and companies. I was going to actually put some benchmarking in place. And so I came up with an idea to do 50% women candidates to every role I work on. So what's kind of morphed over the months as issues like the BLM movement have become more and more at the forefront of the media is I've realized that it can't just be a woman, 50% women that I send. It has to also be minorities. I have to look at the broader scope of minorities and people of color and the LGBTQ community and so forth. So also trying to focus on helping get them some representation, some equal representation as well. But I think what I found was that it has been hard and that there are certain challenges that I see over and over again. And I think one of the big things that I really noticed is that C-suite tends to be on board because I think they have to be almost from like an external media point of view. But I also think HR tends to be on board, talent acquisition. But where I see kind of a lot of the challenges getting that middle to senior manager to be a little bit more open-minded about getting someone on board that meets the diversity criteria, but may not be the exact 100% match that they were looking for. So it's up to us to kind of educate them on how they can take a little bit of responsibility to get that person up and running to where they need to be for their team.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what does that conversation sound like on both sides of the aisle? I'm really curious when you're engaging with some of the large customers that I'm privy to that you're engaged with who are themselves actively trying to recruit. How often do you come across someone who's in a hiring role who says to you, I want to hire very specifically for diversity in this role, versus how often you might be suggesting that that's how they could think about it?
I definitely get asked for it more than I suggest it. I think I've developed a reputation as somebody that is really passionate about this and has seen some results. So I think a lot of companies contact me wanting me to help specifically with this. I would say that I don't always get asked for it, but certainly probably about 75% of the time I'm getting asked for it now. And like I said, I think that, it was very much around women. The past month or two, it's become more around other minorities as well. And those conversations can actually be a little bit trickier. I think people are more comfortable to talk about things, man, woman, that is a conversation we've had for millennia. But I think when you start getting into different categories of diversity, it can become a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation for people.
Yeah, I can imagine. It has been an uncomfortable conversation, and it should continue to be an uncomfortable conversation in this industry until we've achieved something that feels like equitable metrics. The thing that amazes me is that in an era where we're seeing more and more minorities, more and more women getting into STEM, we don't see that level of increase in even in entry-level roles in our industry, where I would arguably say that we do have much better gender diversity and sort of role diversity even in the renewables industry, but for sure in leadership. What's one of the challenges that you hear when you're hiring for, call it mid to upper executive leadership in our industry?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that when you look at more of an entry-level junior position, there are more diverse candidates. And I think that's indicative of how America is, right? We're becoming more and more diverse, which is a good thing. So I think that it will be somewhat less challenging in 10, 15 years from now for people like me to fill those more mid to senior level positions. I think that when I am recruiting for that mid to senior level position, and there is such a small pool of people to choose from, I think it's really important that you really get into the skills and attributes rather than looking at like for like. So they have to be, solar has to be from solar, wind has to be from wind, like just starting to really get to the nitty gritty of what the softer skills are that you're looking for from this person, and what you're prepared to give to them as far as learning and knowledge, and what you aren't, and what they have to come with regardless.
Yeah. I am, I think one of the things we're going to talk about a bit more before we get off our time here today is the idea of net improvement. What I'm conscious of is I know a bunch of what I'd refer to as badass women leaders in this industry. Yeah. I'm going to steal that term from some of our Minnesota brethren and my friends as well, Tara Doyle and Amanda Bybee. There's a list going around. It's literally called "Badass Women in Solar," yeah. and it is such a powerful statement that we even need to say and use these terms that resonate with men, right, or resonate with conference organizers. That we would need to categorize these women as badass, so to speak, like give them some sort of macho image just to make it attractive or what have you. Yeah. I don't know. I think it just speaks to where we're at still in this growth. I want to bring in our friend Renee. Renee Bourgeois is a consultant at Mockingbird Technologies. She's got 15 plus years in oil and gas, and she is also a part of BWise, which is Black Women in Science and in Engineering. Our friend Erica, who founded and runs that organization, put us in touch with Renee. Renee, thanks and welcome to Suncast Live.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Absolutely, it's an honor. So Renee, you have an extensive background specifically in technology in oil and gas, and I feel like a lot of times folks forget when we see the big pumps going up and down, or we see oil rigs, and we have this negative image of, in particular, the oil side of the business from us in renewables. They forget how technology-driven the industry is. Can you give us a sense of what you've seen over the last decade and a half that you've been actively involved in oil and gas, how technology plays a role? And I want to, by sort of looking into that, get a sense of the kinds of skill sets that have been developed in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people will be surprised to know that most oil and gas companies are on the cloud. You know, we were one of the first adopters of AWS, Google Cloud, and you don't associate that with oil and gas. We also, along with, we're behind the curve with finance. I think finance was always ahead. Big data. We have massive amount of data from all our equipment and instrumentation, and it requires us to do data analytics. It requires us to do machine learning. We're starting to adopt AI. So all of those things have happened within the last 10 years. We're big, the saying is data is the new oil.
All right.
And so that's right where we're at. So we, technology is a big driver because we're always looking to improve. How can we optimize our performances? How we can make more money? How we can be safer, be more efficient. So I think you're right, because I had someone when they said, "Oh, you work at BP?" They're like, "Well, you work at a gas station." I'm like, "No, I do not work at a gas station. I actually work in a rock." So, you're right. People just see the derricks or the gas station. That's all they associate with oil and gas. But, when you're living in the energy capital of Houston, the full spectrum of it. And what Catherine is saying is that, when we're applying for jobs and trying to pivot into, clean energy, those soft skills get missed, because I've just told you about data. We got AWS, we got Google Cloud, we got, all the whole gamut, Python, Tableau. Those are transferable skills. But the way these jobs are posted, they're so specific that they're looking for a purple unicorn. And if you don't hit all of those, you're automatically kicked out. So I think there's also a disconnect with how those jobs postings are created with the hiring manager and how HR is presenting them. Because a lot of times, if I have someone from HR contacting me, I spend a lot of time explaining how things work. Like, well, what does this mean? For instance, SAP. I've also worked with SAP, and they're like, well, we need, 15 years experience of this and work with, and I'm like, no, that's not how SAP works. If someone's telling you that, they're not being truthful.
Yeah, yeah. I feel that there's a lot of trying to fit that square peg in a round hole instead of what we're actively trying to do. What are the transferable skills? I'm really curious, and I also want to hear Catherine's response to a lot of the things that you're saying. I'm watching Catherine nod, and she and I have talked about this stuff offline. But I want to just comment on some of the things that you said by way of sort of tossing it back to Catherine. And by the way, as you're watching here on LinkedIn in particular, or if you're watching this on replay on Crowdcast or LinkedIn, I'd love it if you put your comments down. What questions you would ask Renee? What questions you would ask Catherine? What questions we should be asking the chief people officers of the largest renewable companies, the Apex Winds, the Sunruns, of what their hiring practices are and how are they ensuring that we're not just looking inside of our cauldron. Where are we looking to pull in hires? Catherine's going to talk a bit about some of the amazing hires that she's brought into the industry from outside, and she's been doing an amazing video series I would encourage everyone to go check out. But you pointed on data is the new oil. My friend Jarrett Lineweber, who's a huge Suncast fan, he's in one of our private chat groups. He talked about recently a Norwegian company that's applying blockchain to how to optimize oil rigs, right?
Yep.
So most of us wouldn't think about the way that blockchain is being applied to oil and the way that blockchain is being applied, frankly, to gas peakers and many other technologies where we think we're so disruptive, but the oil and gas industry is trying to disrupt itself. They just might not be trying to do it necessarily with solar panels and wind turbines. And I hope that if you get nothing except for a couple of takeaways from this, I want the takeaways to be, if you're a hiring manager, what the transferable skills are instead of looking for this purple unicorn. And if you're looking for a job, we've got a few ways that we want to help guide you down that path. And you're looking at 3 people on this screen who want to help be a resource for you. With that, Catherine, how would you add to or respond to the comments that Renee made?
Yeah, I agree with her. I mean, as a recruiter, a purple unicorn, I mean, goodness, it's like all I get asked for all day long. And it's really quite tiring if I'm like, I just think for some reason, like, it just seems like this one area we can't seem to get past of this, just they have to meet 100% of the job description. So I have something, in the recruitment world called flex the spec. So, really sitting down, like you were talking about, Renee, with the hiring manager or HR and being like, come on, guys, like, what really is a non-negotiable, like what I call the 3 most important things, and what are things that really would be like a nice to have, right? And I think that what I've learned is there are some companies that are happy to have that conversation, and there are other companies that will just go to another recruiter to help them continue to find the purple unicorn. But I just really believe in being honest and transparent with people, and I will try and find the purple unicorn, and sometimes I do find the purple unicorn, but also I'll find a lot of other colored unicorns, and they should also be considered.
Well, talk to me about some of the people that you have hired from, not necessarily from the oil and gas industry, but how you've been able to successfully, as you pointed, get 65% of your new hires as women, and a fair amount of them from outside the industry.
Yeah. I think it really boils down to it really is the client. I can't take kind of all credit for it. It is really having that partnership with the client where they trust and respect. That sometimes I will send somebody over and I'll say, don't look at the resume, just trust me that you speak to them. So it's having that kind of like relationship with the client and trust that they have the conversation. Like, actually, if I had opened that resume before the call, I probably wouldn't have spoken to them. So, I think, it's that constant sort of pushback. But like I said, I mean, I can't do it on my own. I can yell until I'm blue in the face about the importance of it. But if I can have the best candidates on the planet from banking and finance, from oil and gas, even from our own space, who may be, a different skill set than the one that they're trying to apply for within our own industry. But if I don't have clients and hiring managers, buyers for the candidates I'm representing, then it's never going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting for you. It's always the supply demand. Watching friends like you in the recruiting role, and I think it's admirable. It's honorable even that you have made a stake for Dillon Green that 50 or more % of your hires and placements are going to be female and diversity oriented.
I'll just say one more thing quickly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, and the other thing that I've noticed is that I've implemented something a couple of months ago called Candidate of the Week. So I felt like I was starting to acquire some really good talent that I didn't necessarily have jobs for, but I felt confident that my network out there somewhere would be interested in their profiles. And I've seen a lot of success with that, actually. And that was in the video that you alluded to at the beginning of the crowdcast. So I think it's also being proactive on the candidate's behalf. So not just waiting for the jobs to come in and then filling the jobs, but actually saying, okay, this is a really good candidate. And, I'm sure somebody out there would agree with me as this is a really good candidate and making. So I think a lot of recruiters are like, I have this job, I have that job, but I also try to say, I have this candidate, I have that candidate. And we've seen some real progress that way being made.
I love that. Renee, I want to turn the focus to you. We're gonna wrap this in probably about 5 minutes, and I think we're gonna be hyper quick here. But I want to point out that BP, 10,000 layoffs, 12,000 at Chevron, probably another 5 at Exxon. So we're in excess of 25,000 now, essentially jobless. Mostly for them, they have the luxury that the oil and gas industry does tend to take care of their family when they have to downsize. So they probably have a couple of months. They're thinking about it, right? July's almost over. A lot of them are sitting on that budget of August. They still have some time. September is going to be crunch time. Typically, I understand from Catherine's homework, about 15% of the oil and gas industry is women. I think we're closer to 25 in renewables, so I'll at least say hurrah there. But that means that even if we're just looking at raw numbers and we don't assume what I already assume, which is that probably more women were laid off than men, we're looking at just under 4,000 women laid off. Now, that's not people of color, that's just women, and obviously some of those women are people of color. We're probably looking at between 5 and 10,000 if we look at women and people of color who are presently highly skilled and in the job force, and potentially, even if we take, let's call it 20% of that, we're at 2,000 candidates right now, highly skilled, highly trained, and ready to move into clean energy. The other 8,000 are sort of waffling, not sure how or if they'll ever have a job in oil and gas. What advice do you give the folks who are reaching out to you and to the BWise community? Where should they be looking for a job? Where are the relevant channels for them to plug into? And feel free to plug BWise here as well. What are the fundamentals that they should now be doing to position themselves to move forward?
Number one is networking. Networking. The days of just applying for a job and hoping for the best are gone. So you need to be at this time building your network, reconnecting with people you may have not talked with in the past, working on, figuring out what it is you want to do. It doesn't have to be a specific job, but what you're passionate about. Develop a value proposition. Work on building your brand. Update your LinkedIn profile. Some people, it's out of date. Update your LinkedIn profile. Connect with groups of like-minded people. BWise, we have a job board. And, get that elevator pitch, because that elevator pitch will get you through a lot, because you can quickly articulate who you are, what you're doing, and what skills you can bring to the table. And also start looking at companies that you're interested in to work at. Do some little investigation with them and figure out, what problem can I solve? What can I bring to the table for that company, and then start networking your way into that company. And you'd be surprised how just by doing that simple activity, it'll spiral out and expose you to companies that you may not have never heard of before that would be the ideal landing place for you.
Can I just say something quickly off the back of that?
Please.
The networking part, I couldn't agree with more. Anyone who knows me knows I'm like obsessed with networking. But I think also what you said about the value proposition, because I think for someone like me, for example, who knows very little about oil and gas, it would be so helpful if somebody was contacting me from oil and gas to say, I'm not going to bore you with what I've done in oil and gas because it's going to go over your head. I'm just going to tell you what my value proposition is and where I think I can add value to your solar client. And that's how you can sell them. Because I don't know how to sell them, right? So it's them helping me help them get that interview where they can then talk all things technical.
Yeah. And like I said, the value proposition is real quick, guys. It's 2-3 sentences. It's not your whole story. Like mine is, I'm a data and technology management leader with over 15 years experience, specializing in technical analytics, software implementation, and data solution delivery. I take technical organizations and turn them into data powerhouses that have generated millions of dollars in revenue. That's what I do.
Booyah!
I got a job.
I love it.
I got a job for you.
That is so. Yeah. I love that so much. Renee, you just nailed it. There's a couple of things before we wrap that I want to touch on here. One, we're getting a lot of comments on the various channels from LinkedIn to Facebook, and a couple other folks who are chiming in even in YouTube. So there's a message here from Troy, and I think it really actually touches on something that I go through with my coaching clients a lot, but that we leave out far too often as candidates. And it's always made the difference for me when I show up looking at a job that, also the last 10 years I've always just been referred to opportunities, which is a privilege that you get by mentoring and networking. So when you're referred to a job, the first thing I do is I send the hiring manager my DISC assessment, the very first thing. And I say to him, this is how I can work with your team, and this is the way I communicate, and this is how you should think about my role within your company with respect to the role that you're hiring. And Troy points out something kind of similar. I'm going to play with this functionality. It's going to go over your face, Renee. I'm so sorry for that. But Troy made a really good comment. He talks about the philosophy of hiring for a fit both inside and outside of the company, mentors and mentees, and how you can base these personalities on testing in real data, looking at the psychology. Where are the areas where you need to improve from different styles of communication? Or how do you hire someone that's not going to be a bad fit from a communication style inside your organization? I think that's a really nuanced point, and it goes to, I'm going to pull that away now so we can see Renee again, but it goes to this whole idea that a lot of times folks who are transitioning, in particular transitioning from one industry to another, they don't know where to start. And my friend John Chamanis at Kendall Sustainable Infrastructure, he had, I've heard him say it now twice, once on my podcast and just recently on the Energy Experts Only podcast. He said, if you're going to change jobs, you can change one of two things, your industry or your expertise, never both at the same time. So the advice there, and this is what I see people sort of fumbling, is they forget, oh, I'm an expert in data science. I'm going to take that data science expertise and how I can basically call any database and use Tableau and show you the visualization of how this data matters to you. You can do that in so many roles in solar. You don't have to change to be something that meets a job rec. You basically want to say, here's the tools I bring, and find someone like Catherine who can find a job rec that matches those tools. But you got to be really aware of those transferable skills.
I think also off the back of that, what I see is people trying to do too much at once, right? They try to change industry, then they're like, oh, and then I'm also interested in living in this city or that city, but I haven't moved to that city, and I want a pay increase, and Like you kind of have to pick one thing and then focus on that before you do the next thing. They just especially when there's just too many balls in the air. Sometimes I think people have, and they overcomplicate things, and you just kind of need to pick one at a time, is my opinion.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
absolutely right. You need to have that clarity, because if you have too many balls in the air, you just dilute yourself as a candidate. So you need to have that clarity of what's really important to me. What are the top three things? And, what can I absolutely not live without, and what I'm willing to compromise on.
Yeah.
Yeah. If any of this stuff resonates with you and you're actively looking for a role and you have tried, like I know Catherine's got a client that has tried time and time again. He's a high quality banker, living in the South, a man of color, but a man of integrity and skill. And he just keeps running into a roadblock and can't get into the industry. Those are the kinds of things that drive us nuts. If that resonates with you, or even if you've just gotten tired of your work in oil and gas or high tech, and you're looking for a side door, as it were, to get into the solar, wind, geothermal industry, e-mobility, if you're looking at all things clean tech, in particular clean energy, and you just haven't been able to figure out your specific elevator pitch, I encourage you to comment. Alex is going to drop a link to a LinkedIn post I did about a week and a half ago that got the conversation with Renee and I going, where we're about to roll out a program that is it's a very small alpha program ahead of something else that Catherine and I are working on for August. And this program is exactly designed to help you get a job in clean energy. Its only job is to walk you through our process that's worked for us, our process that's worked for our clients, dozens of coaching clients, hundreds. Catherine's placed hundreds of people in the renewable energy industry in a decade. So let me give you a sense for, we're going to walk through how to get that personal brand and that elevator pitch. Going to give you a LinkedIn template that works and converts. It basically becomes your landing page. And as we know today, your resume essentially is your LinkedIn profile. We're going to walk you through how to be engaging. As Renee mentioned, so many folks forget that LinkedIn is a network. It is the number one place where you can network. We're going to help you perfect that prospect pipeline. Catherine is an ace at helping you figure out exactly the kind of company that is going to value your transferable skills. And you're going to get my favorite high probability, low cost way to generate more opportunity by really positioning yourself as an authority in your space. You probably guessed it by now, but Catherine, myself, another friend of mine, Les Mood, we've figured out a thing or three about how to get eyeballs on our content, how to get ears on our content. We're going to walk you through the process that we use to do that. It doesn't fit for everybody, but we're going to help you find how you create value ahead of the value you're going to create for that company. They can see the work that you do. We're going to look at some of the overlooked opportunities for job seekers. We're going to get your conversion and negotiation skills tuned up. All of this is an 8-week program that we're going to walk up to 10 people through. We already have folks who've put the deposit down because, as I said, Alex is going to drop the link there where I posted it. I don't know, I think Monday was a week ago. We got a ton of insight into what people are looking for. I've already got people who said, I'm in, drop their deposit. If that sounds like you, and you would value from Renee or Catherine being your coach along with myself, then I would love for you to just raise your hand, right? This is like Sunday morning altar call, but raise your hand and say, that's me. Please, I need help. I want help. And more than that, I want to be aligned with folks who really understand how to move into the clean energy business, because we really believe fundamentally one thing above all else. That is that we are all in the energy business. And if you're in a part of the energy business that is going through a downturn, welcome to a part of the energy business that has been the highest growth of job creation in the United States 5 years running. We invite you to ask questions. Maybe you won't be a part of our case study program, but I'd love for you to be a part of our community. I'd love for you to be a part of our network. I'd love for you to connect with Catherine and Renee, to join Black women in science and engineering. Be Wise is amazing, and we're going to have Erica on one of our lives soon. just raise your hand, say I'm in, tell me more in the comments, and we will be in touch with you. Any parting thoughts from you first, Renee?
I would just say to people, now's the time to make out your game plan. Make a plan and work your plan. And it's not. It sounds overwhelming and challenging, and it can be, but it's doable. We know how to do things in oil and gas. We're just going to pivot to a different industry.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Catherine?
Gosh, parting thoughts. I don't know. I think parting thoughts are, I really want to make sure that we have a platform where we're celebrating the clients and the companies, they're my clients, companies that are, holding their hand up and saying, yes, I am actually going to take people from oil and gas, from banking and finance, from military, and bring them into my organization. I'm not just going to talk about D&I. I'm going to actually do it. Companies like S-Power, for example, I think are actually taking the time to look at people from other industries and really try and bring them into the space and welcome them into the space. And the final thing I'll say is, at the moment, it's we're all very busy in renewables and we're just about managing. However, if a certain candidate gets into the White House in November, the market is going to go further crazy, and we just simply aren't going to have the people to manage it. It's just not sustainable with the level of people we have. So now's the time to do it, because hopefully he is going to get in. So now's the time to do it and be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If you are not already following Dylan Green on LinkedIn, you've got to check out the content this lady is dropping. It is fire. I'm telling you, the videos are hot. You're doing a great job, Catherine. Renee, I hope that, I'll invite Erica or you to drop in the comments how folks can connect with Be Wise. It is such a wonderful organization. Thousands of black women across the United States, maybe even across the world, who are actively engaged in science and engineering. Many of them are in oil and gas, many of them are not. Strong contingent in Houston, obviously, strong contingent in Chicago. Connect to these connections. We do this so that you have more tools in your war chest. This is an opportunity for you to grow personally and professionally. That's what we're here and that's what we're about at Suncast, and I hope that this has been valuable for you. If it has, would you just hit like and also consider sharing it with someone that you know who could use this information to grow their own personal career and develop? We'd love to be in touch with them. Thank you so much. Thanks, Catherine. Thanks, Renee. Thank you all for joining us here on this edition of Suncast Live. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Happy Friday, and we'll be in touch very soon.